How is everybody doing? Welcome to the season 1 finale of Cocktails with Cav. Oh my goodness, 50 episodes. I cannot believe it, 50 episodes. And you guys, the support you have shown throughout 2024 has just been incredible. I can't thank you enough. So look, as always, please follow us, share the stream so more people can get to know these incredible indie creators. Oh man, 2025 is going to be a banger year, so y'all get ready. So give us that follow. And look, tonight, as usual, brought to you by our great friends at Run Amok Books. They're an incredible indie publishing outfit. They're not afraid to take chances. They're looking for new, exciting, engaging, heck, even maybe controversial voices. So give them a look. The link will be in the description, Run Amok Books. Well, tonight's show, I am very, very excited. Look, #1 New York Times Nonfiction Bestseller. This show is incredible. The author of True Story, which was turned into a movie by the same name with Jonah Hill and James Franco, incredible movie. Also the author of Stranger in the Woods. But tonight, we're going to talk about his latest and greatest #1 New York Times bestseller. 23 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list so far. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Cocktails with Cav stage, author and accomplished journalist, Michael Finkel. Oh, Mike, I am so glad you could take the time out of your schedule, my friend, to join us here on Cocktails with Cav. I'm excited. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. Cheers, Cav.
Oh, I'll tell you what do you have on your end?
This is a classic Moscow Mule, but I think I put a little ginger flavored also tequila in there, so it's doubly gingered.
Oh, well, that is always, I tell you what, I've been outdone on Cocktails with Cav by the guest. I don't understand it.
I used to be a bartender in a bar in Bozeman, Montana, and had a great teacher who sort of like taught me the ins and outs of mixology, which is a term that I don't think any bar in Montana uses. But so I was really excited to be invited to a show whose first name is Cocktail. And I just want to point out for another flex that not only is my shirt filled with martini glasses, but maybe it's a little bit too much information, but my socks too. No kidding. Have cocktail glasses on them. Where we go now? I don't know if you can see it, but there you go. Not too many people pull their socks off on the Cocktails with Cav hour. But yeah, so I'm cocktailed up. I'm like a theme party. You know, I like to participate.
I like it. Well, I tell you what, this is going to go down as one of, not only because you're an incredible author, Mike, and journalist, but because, you know, this is going to be the greatest 50th episode of Cocktails with Cav ever. And probably the only 50th episode.
Let's not get into the weeds here. Let's just stick with the greatest 50th.
That's it. Well, man, I tell you what, Mike, we love for the audience to get to know the creators because obviously, you know, I'm a huge fan of the author meet and greets and those type of events. And you know, I love to get to know the creators. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on. I know you're an incredible journalist, not just an incredible author, but and look, take the compliments, mister.
I mean, thank you. I actually also like to meet artists and creators myself. I find inspiration there also. Anyway, hello everybody, Mike Finkel here. I'm talking to you from Park City, Utah, where it's snowy. I love to ski. I've been a full-time journalist for almost 40 years, 35 years. I was literally wrote for my high school paper, my college paper, and then after that I write a lot about sports, adventures, politics, scientific breakthroughs. I wrote a lot for National Geographic magazine. I used to write a lot for the New York Times Sunday magazine. But I think my favorite topic, strangely or whatever, I'm not gonna put an opinion in there. I really like crime. I like to talk to criminals, and more to the point, I think criminals like to talk to me. I've had some ups and downs in my career, been fired from jobs, recovered from things, not the way I wrote it up, but that such is life. And really, like, the more fascinating, sort of more intelligent the criminal, the sort of more I'm interested in. There's just something I like going to. Judge me as you will, people, but I really like going to prisons and conducting interviews in prison interview rooms. And there's just something about it where there's like a lot of tension and stress, and there's a lot of banging and weird noises on the outside. And it's sort of like this little cone of like, I'm in the middle of a prison. That's especially if it's like high security, you're really going through, like, the visitor's going through a bunch of doors, and I'm imagining the prisoner himself being let out of a bunch of doors, and you sort of meet in this little booth in the very heart of a prison. And there's something about the unnaturalness of this that produces like a very, like, that this isn't going to be a normal conversation and you're not just casual. And I really like talking. I really like finding that point where a person is willing to just tell me their story without feeling any pressure on the outside. And there's something about, you get the right criminal and they want to tell you their story, and I like to listen. That doesn't mean I accept or permit or exonerate, but I'm fascinated by people that commit serial crimes.
Yeah, and no, that is fascinating, because that's, one of my favorite things is just those deep dives into characters. Even, as you're proliferating in the nonfiction genre, it's, that depth of what's going on to motivate them. And heck, Truman Capote for In Cold Blood, right? That was
one of my absolute favorites. Yeah, And I did want to mention, Cal, thank you for sort of touching on that. That everything I write, everything we're going to discuss this today is true. I'm not a fiction writer. I love reading fiction, but some of the stories that we'll talk about are kind of hard to believe. But I really want to stress to your audience that they're 100% true. This isn't like based on a true story or 90% of a true story. It's like very carefully fact checked, but also I like to find that intersection between true and unbelievable at the same time. And that's the story I like to write.
Oh, yeah. And it is fascinating. I tell you, I have to imagine the length of time you spend as a journalist, and researching, and has to add to the value of the research you do for your true crime stories. I mean, right? It's.
You mentioned to me earlier that you have a lot of writers that listen to the show, and fellow writers, man, do not ever think about how much you're getting paid per hour, because my son, who waits tables at a local restaurant, I think makes more per hour than me. There are some serious inefficiencies baked into the whole profession of writing, and I think you got to be a little obsessed, a little bit like, just don't be like, I'm going to work 6 hours today. It's like, and even when I'm not kind of working, I'm like laying on my pillow and cogitating, and things are going through the head. So it's sort of it's like the dividing line between my life and my work is unclear. And, I like it that way. Writers should love to read. Like, if you give me a topic that I'm into, I'll just read 100 books. I think we're going to talk about The Art Thief, and I think every single book behind me are the art crime books that I read to prepare to write my own very short book. I feel like an astute reader knows if the writer is BSing or has like this knowledge, even if you're not like showing off with facts and figures. There's sort of this sense that the writer has done his or her homework.
And I think that is the key, because you can tell realism versus,
I think you get this little whiff of BS when someone's like faking it. Like, when I started writing, I was like, I'm not actually sure, like, to be honest, what a Renaissance painting even is. Like, I'm not embarrassed to say that, I've used this word a lot, but what is Renaissance? What is the Baroque? What is Rococo? And I was like, I don't really know. So I'm going to read a bunch of books. I'm going to really feel like, go to museums, talk to curators, and just have that knowledge. And so when I write about something, I'm like, by the way, this is the late 17th century, or I'm gonna I feel like sometimes you can be a little shy to be like, you know what, I'm actually not really sure what that is. And I don't think that's something to be embarrassed about at all. Just like ask. And, I don't almost like it when a journalist assumes too much knowledge. Like, even when I'm reading about politics about, say, Ukraine and Russia, I was like, well, what was the basis of this war? Like, it's not a big deal to go and like give you some elementary like pointers. And sometimes you just leave me with like, I feel like I need a little primer in education. So I always like to research right down to the very basics. And
yeah, and I tell you, you make an excellent point, because I had a high school teacher once that just told me, never make fun of someone mispronouncing a word because it means they read it versus heard it, so they're working on it,
Guilty as charged. I'm just actually coming through my head a couple of times that I have mispronounced words, and that does happen, and of course I'm a human, so I get a little embarrassed, but on the other hand, I'm also getting a little old, so I'm like, life is always about, on the same time, don't always do things that you're good at or that you know how to do. It's kind of fun to be a beginner and to mess up and to whatever, mispronounce or be a beginner, like that beginner mindset, which is one of the things I love about being a journalist, is that when I tackle a new subject, I'm writing a story about nuclear fusion. I don't really know much about it. So I can talk to like Harvard professors where I'm like, listen, man, what is nuclear fusion? Like I'll start with the basics. And like, what's fission fusion? Is that the big tanks? What's 3 Mile? Oh, it's fission. Oh, what's fission? I don't mind breaking it down. I think it's like that, what do you call, I was saying, like that beginner mindset that sort of, I think it keeps you young in a way and like vibrant. Like it's good to try things that you suck at.
Yeah. It's definitely helpful to be honorable, to approach a subject with some bit of, being humble about it. In that way, you make sure you don't miss anything important, right?
Yeah. And I do like that sort of, just that curious mind sort of thing where but I'm not afraid to, I don't like to pretend that I know more than I do. And so anyway, and fellow journalists, fellow writers out there, it's totally fine to ask the most basic. I like dumb questions, man. That's my favorite.
Well, I got plenty of them. You're welcome to Cocktails with Cav. No.
Come to the right spot, Hutch.
That's it. Well, what made you make that move into writing your first book? Because and not to discount your success, as it were, in the publishing world. I mean, what made you make that step and from journalism and decide to get into your first book, and what was it and what happened?
I mean, I think I'm pretty blessed as a person that I've always sort of wanted to be. I think there's one of the things on my shelf over here is like this diary I kept when I was like 10 years old, and it said in there that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. Now, who writes that at 10? Also, it said, the next sentence said, if I don't become a writer, I'd like to be, quote, a mad scientist. So, so I was 10 years old, but literally it was on my mind. So I'm really fortunate, blessed even, or like, I have tons of friends who even in their 50s are like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm like, dude, you're 50, you've grown up. So it's always something I wanted to be. And I can't even tell you how fortunate I feel that the thing I really wanted to do, I was able to make it work. You can't just snap your fingers. It's such a competitive profession. So I worked back in the dinosaur era. I worked on newspapers, and that actually came out on paper. I worked on magazines during the heyday of adventure magazines. And then I have 3 children, and my wife and I had 3 children in 3 years. And so it got really hard to travel 5, 6, 7, 8 months a year. And so the rhythm of book writing, where you can stay home for a while and do little trips, really appealed to me. And at the same time, the business itself was sort of getting more difficult to make a living at magazines. So some of it was, I do this, I love writing, but I don't do it for my hobby. I do it to keep the electricity on. Right. It was a combination of like, that's where they're paying money, and that's where I'm interested in. And there's, true crime has always been like you said, I think you mentioned In Cold Blood, a great book written in the 50s, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Early 60s. That's my French bulldog, or one of the 2 of them. So just bear with me. Welcome to the life. There'll probably be a teenager in here.
Hey, they read too. We can't complain.
Well, let's not push it. Anyway, so yeah, I this is something I've been, I'm not. All right, Blue. This is like something that I've been blessed with, like that I've really always wanted to express myself in writing. And I'm not a photographer. I'm not a filmmaker, and I'm I love meeting people that are into those mediums. That there's something about just getting a story down on paper. And I also really like I mentioned earlier, I love to read. I feel a little old-fashioned, but at night I don't really want to watch television. It's sort of so jittery and so many images. It doesn't actually make me sleepy at all. It makes me kind of weirdly alert. I like to sit quietly with a book, and that's always been my way of like ending my day. And so
well, you certainly made good choices. I mean, because I'm like Jethro Bodine, you know, I either wanted to be a brain surgeon or a streetcar conductor. I don't know. But and you certainly you came out the gate, you know, your very first success. I mean, obviously, what Stranger in the Woods, right? And
yeah, there was even a book before that was just so bizarre. I will mention it briefly, but like it opens up a can of worms. The very first book I wrote was called True Story. And it's a tongue-in-cheek title because it's about a pathological liar. But I'm just going to tell you how I got into true crime. I got into true crime not by choice, but by circumstance. I'm just going to give you, well, let's not talk the whole night about this, but this is a really weird thing. And I'm just going to tell it to you straight. Back in 2000, so a while ago, a person who was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for killing 4 people was found in Mexico under an alias. Now, if you can see, my name is Mike Finkel or Michael Finkel. This murderer on the FBI's 10 most wanted list was going around Mexico telling everybody that, I'm not making this up, that his name was Michael Finkel and that he was a freelance journalist, and he didn't steal my social security number. It was like personality theft. Like he went around telling everyone that he was me. I'm not making this up. Hooked up with a photographer who was convinced that she was on assignment for the New York Times magazine where I was working, and like went around pretending to be this journalist, and then finally is arrested by the FBI, extradited to the United States, and the only person he'll talk to is, you've guessed it, the real Mike Finkel. I go to the jail. This guy, whose real name is Christian Longo, tells me, dude, magazine writers are not famous. Like, he's like, I've been a big fan of yours. I have like one fan. He turns out to be a psychopathic murderer, but you take him and you get him, is what I'm telling you in the writing book. And so I had a 1-year bizarre, uncomfortable, disturbing correspondence where I would talk on the phone and visit this guy in Oregon, where he told me, of course, that he was innocent. He thought I was a great journalist and he would prove his innocence to me. And I said, bring it on, prove your innocence to me, and I will write what I feel. And that was the basis of my first book. And I will give away the ending. I didn't believe that he was innocent.
That is an incredible story. Well, now I'll tell you what, you can add drunk cocktail show host to your fan list, and you can call it a club now that you have 2. But no, Michael, I tell you what, let me go refill my cocktail, buddy, because we have to talk about your incredible new book, The Art Thief, when we get back. Of course, it hit #1 on the New York Times Bestseller nonfiction list. Heck, it's been on 22 weeks now. So by all means, please, let's talk about it when we get back, bud.
I look forward to that.
Okay, everybody, got to pay those bills. Quick mid-roll break real fast. Look, as an Amazon affiliate, I only advertise products I truly believe in, and I wanted to give everyone a heads up on this incredible product that I use myself, especially when traveling. You cannot go wrong with the Camrui Mini Desktop PC. With 16 gigs DDR4 RAM, as well as a 512 gig hard drive, it's as powerful as the big, huge desktop I have at home in my office. And when I'm traveling, look, you can see it fits in the palm of your hand. It's so easy to travel with. With its multiple HDMI ports, I just simply plug it into the TV in my RV or hotel room, and I have as much computing power as I need to even produce my Cocktails with Cav show on the road. So if you're in the market for a PC, please check out our affiliate link in the description. It is so incredibly inexpensive, you're not going to believe it. So do yourself a favor, go click that affiliate link and check it out. You'll be glad you did. Oh, Michael, thanks so much. And I'm going to call you Mike because we're best friends now. Mike. I'm best friends with the New York Times bestselling author. I just want everybody to know.
I go with the name Michael Finkel for the title, but it's a little rhymey. And, you know, really, if you're mad at me, be like, Michael. But if you're my buddy, Mike, please.
There you go. And you can't go wrong. Yeah, we have cocktails. You have a cocktail shirt. I feel comfortable. So
Let's do it now, please.
Oh, well, like we were talking about, Mike, before the break, look, your book, I'm a huge fan of true crime myself, but this particular work, The Art Thief, is of course garnered a lot of attention around. And like I had said right before the break, look, hit number 1 on the New York Times Nonfiction Bestseller. It's been on the list for 22 weeks now. By all means, please give us a little overview of how you got into this work and the idea and just your research. Tell me everything. I'm fascinated.
So I really like this story. Now, whether you like the book or not, that's up to you. But boy, what a story. I said I've been a journalist for like 30 something years. And so I've rarely in my life come across something. So just the basic steps of this is a man. Now you haven't heard of him. His name is Stefan Breitweiser. The only reason you haven't heard of him is that he's French and doesn't speak English. If this guy was American, there would probably be 3 books about him. He was born in 1971, so this is not ancient history. This happened in the late 90s, right up to today. So I love that. This guy, all right, so first of all, by the way, all I did during COVID was read, like all those books there, was read about every art crime, like every art criminal I could read about, true ones, and also fictitious ones like Thomas Crown Affair and, Ocean's 11. But I wanted to know who is the most prolific art thief of all time. And I'm telling you, I read nothing but book after book. The second most prolific art thief that I could find in all of history stole from 19 different museums. The guy I wrote about in The Art Thief, Stefan Breitweiser, stole from more than 200 places. So 200 thefts, in which he sometimes stole more than one work of art at the same time, 300 works of art. So you got the quantity, which is just mind-blowing. There's not even really a second place. His girlfriend was his accomplice. Here, besides the quantity, I liked the way in which they stole, which was during the day, sometimes with guards in the room, without using any violence. There was no machine guns, no smoke bombs. They did it like a pickpocket, like kind of invisible style. I loved the way they stole because you can be a little more humorous if there's no violence, if no one's getting physically hurt. But it wasn't even how they stole or the number. I liked what they did with the works of art. Unlike almost any other art thief in all of history, Stefan Breitweiser, the French art thief, and his girlfriend, Anne-Catherine Kleinklaus, stole $2 billion worth of art just to hang them on their bedroom walls and sort of make love underneath them. And I just that idea of not trying to even get money, just to surround yourself with the most beautiful objects in the world to put in your bedroom, and he cared for them like a curator. Now, that's the first half of the book. Like any good Icarus story, the closer you fly to the sun, your wings are going to melt and you're going to crash. There is an insanely, horrific crash. Not only, does Breitweiser get caught, something happens to all the artwork. I don't want to give too much away, but his you will not really guess the tragedy. But the first thing is this sort of like amassing this ridiculous Kings-like collection. And then the second half of the book is the crazy downfall. And I was fortunate enough to be able to interview Breitweiser many, many times, and I speak French, which is like a cool little thing. We did all of our interviews. Je parle français, so I didn't need a je n'étais pas besoin d'un traducteur. I didn't need a translator. So you can really it's got a terrible accent, my French, but it was really fun to do interviews and a whole sort of story in another language. You can kind of get away with shit if it's your second language, ask questions that you kind of know are rude, but you're talking in another language. So you can get away with it. It's kind of fun. And this guy, Stefan, the art thief, he didn't really like French media. He always loved American movies. And one of my things is I do not pay any of these criminals. None of the criminals I talk to get money from me or editorial control. I write the whole thing without the, they give me their interviews and they have to sort of trust me, which is crazy, but they can make money if it becomes a movie. And I think that was one of Stefan Breitweiser's motivations, is that he dreams of there being a Hollywood film about him. And, I don't know if there will be or there won't be, but it seems possible. I mean, it's such a crazy story. Anyway, so I really, I think the sign of a good protagonist of a book is, to this day, and I worked on this project. It wasn't all I did, but I worked on the project for like 11 years, from the first time I read about Stefan Breitweiser to like actually holding a book in my hand. 11 years passed. That is ridiculously inefficient. And to this day, like every time I talk about him right now with you, I'm like, not sure if I like him or dislike him, or if he's like such a he's fascinating, but he's annoying. And, you know, if everybody behaved like him, modern society would just collapse into a big puff of smoke. You know, he was self-entitled, but he also was like, had these amazing sort of justifications for his crimes. And, you know, I love letting intelligent, insane criminals talk to me and explain their actions. And of course, most criminals have, like Breitweiser himself, had a big ego, and he had an amazing memory. And he explained to me like all his crimes, like step by step, how he actually did it. And then I would go to the police that were inspecting his crimes and sort of run it by them. And they would be like, oh yeah, I was wondering how he did that. And, you know, trying to get all the facts from both sides. And I built up enough trust. One of the nice things about reporting for years as opposed to days is that you build up, like, you know, I met with Breitweiser in France many times, then would go home and then meet with him again. And you build up this trust. And he eventually gave me like signed written permission to see his psychology reports, you know, just things that are just so rich and you usually don't get access to, you know. So I feel really, if I may be so cocky to say, I'm like proud of the amount of work, you know, that I saw a quarter of his life, you know, 10 years passed by, and I really got to see like a huge chunk of this person's life, and we developed this relationship, and he told me so much. And so I wrote his biography. And another thing that I believe when I'm writing, I'm sorry for babbling so much.
No, not at all. Cause it's fascinating.
Thank you. I don't like it when the author puts their thumb on the scale too much and tries to tell you what to believe. I like to be both the prosecutor and the defense. I like to lay out all the facts of the case in the most fun style possible. Like I like a good story, but I'll put the good, the bad, the ugly, the facts of the case, the psychology reports, what the police say, what his mother said, what his friends said, and I put it all together in the most pleasing way possible. But I like the reader. I always feel in my mind like the reader sort of is the jury. And when you close the book, you're like, wow, I really like that guy. Or, what a bastard. Or that guy should try. Or that guy should, you know, be a museum security consultant. Like, I like to let the reader determine how he or she feels. And it's really fun when I do like a presentation and people come up to me. It's like, I love that guy. I freaking hated that guy. I'm like, oh, right on. This is cool. Yeah. Like, nobody's wrong here, man.
And you know, you bring up an excellent point about the way I feel is why would the writer put his thumb on the scale? I mean, it's the old adage, right? You can't make this shit up. Why would you mess with it? You know, because those had to be fascinating. Just his mental evaluations of different aspects of his own life had to be way more fascinating than something you could come up with.
Right. And also, I just like it when criminals have their own like really sort of twisted logic that I like to step away from. For example, Stefan Breitweiser, the art thief that I wrote about, he liked to say, you know, Mike, museums, they really are just prisons for art. And I'm like, you're crazy. You know, my mind is like, I'm sitting there, you know, tell me more. But in my mind, I'm like, you're crazy. But then he's like, listen, man, this is what you really want to do in front of a great painting. You want to have a glass of wine, maybe have your best girl there, maybe touch the paint really lightly with your fingers, maybe make love in front of it, maybe do it in the middle of the night, maybe see. Like, these are all things that I believe that museums would highly frown upon. And he's not wrong. Like, boy, that's really what I would like to do in front of my Picasso. I just don't happen to have a Picasso. And of course, the point of the museum is so we can all see paintings, not just people that are billionaires, but you know, he was a melange. Stefan Breitweiser, I kind of liked the way he said, because he was a melange of completely crazy, and also there was kind of a point buried in there, like, you know, I think maybe there should be couches and wine in museums, and maybe you book like your 30 minutes that you get to sit in front of the Mona Lisa, just you and your mate, and sit and enjoy the Mona Lisa with a cup of wine. And maybe you have to sign up 6 months in advance, but I think that might be more fulfilling than jamming into a room with 700 people, all of them with selfie sticks and elbowing. So he's both wrong and crazy, but also not wrong and not crazy at the same time. I love that.
And I was going to ask, because it dawned on me the level of research when you talk about interviewing him and just having those deep conversations that you're allowed to explore and just have those conversations, do you ever find yourself really as a logical person being pulled just to that point you just made, being kind of pulled towards their logic after you develop a relationship? Because I have to imagine, and I think I even read an interview with Capote, as he talked about the interviews for In Cold Blood, is that he kind of became drawn to that psychology,
Kev, this is really insightful, because at the same time that I'm not trying to put my thumb on the scale, I'm also not pretending that I'm not human, filled with emotions and opinions. There's no way to be purely impartial. I'm also admitting that too, that I'm like, I got all sorts of things. So it's like this kind of funny needle that I'm trying to thread. I'm giving you all the facts, good and bad, but I'm also admitting that, so the relationship that I had with Brightweiser, the art thief, progressed so much that not only did I see his psychology reports, we went to a couple of museums together from which he stole, where first of all, he's banned from most museums in Europe. So he put like this fake, he doesn't wear glasses. He put these fake glasses on, pulled this baseball cap low on his head. And, museum security is not, it's not Fort Knox here. It's usually retirees or college kids on summer break. So he got in, and we're going through museums, and he's like showing me exactly, like literally step by step, how he stole things. And I'm like, we're walking through this museum, and he gets very excited and animated. And not only is he showing me the paintings, he's showing me how they're attached to the wall and pointing out all the security cameras and the little exits he could take. It's like, look at this emergency exit. What do you see? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, there's no alarm on it. And he's like, opens it up. And I'm like, you're about, oh yeah, there's no alarm on it. He just opens it. It's like, look, you can just go right through this. And I'm like, fascinating. And so the museum that we really spent the most time in was called the Rubens House in Antwerp, Belgium, where he stole one of his favorite things, this ivory sculpture of Adam and Eve. And he's like getting so animated that I'm like literally following, like, just imagine this as a reporter or as a person. Like, you're going into a museum with the world's greatest art thief. Like,
you're right.
So the whole time I'm like thinking, like, this is great. I'm taking notes. I'm like recording things. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting this feeling he's going to steal something. Like, and then, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, right.
I can't be an accomplice. I'm like, holy moly, I'm gonna have to like call the police on my own subject, because he's getting really excited. In fact, I actually thought he might steal something that he had once stolen earlier and had been returned to this museum. Again, not mentioning too much about the second half of the book, but he was obsessed with it. So I'm happy to report to you, Cab, that after going through the museum, Brightweiser did not steal a work of art. However, I'm admitting this to you now as a sort of exclusive for Cocktails with Cav.
Scoop on Cocktails with Cav. I got it. I'm
feeling
good.
Actually did steal something from that museum, and I have it with me tonight. So, as with many museums, Brightweiser stole mostly in France, Switzerland, Belgium, other European museums, which are, there's museums everywhere in Europe, mostly smaller museums that are a little less guarded. But as with most museums, you exit through the gift shop. And we're out on the streets of Antwerp, and Brightweiser says to me, I got you the catalog, and I know he didn't pay for it. And not only that, he was thinking of me. He got me the English edition, not the French edition. And he hands this to me, and I'm telling you right now, this is stolen merchandise. Yeah, it's €4, but $4. But I accepted it and never said a word. So this is an absolute piece of loot, and it's funny because let me just open to it. So this is the, if you can see it on this is the Adam and Eve ivory that he stole. And then all these paragraphs next to it sort of explain like how it was stolen from the museum and how it got back into the museum. And I don't know if you could tell, but there's a little bit of green writing at the top. Let's see, where is it? Right there. And, it's hard to tell, but Brightweiser is a stickler for facts. So he takes the book out of my hands, corrects a couple of mistakes in the program guide. So this is something that I kept on my desk next to me as I was writing, an actual genuine piece of stolen goods by the world's greatest art thief. Okay, Rubens House, sue me if you must. I kept it.
Well, I tell you what, Mike, a couple of more weeks on the bestsellers list, and that might be, if he signed it for you, make sure you go get him to sign it. That might be worth more than.
That's funny. Yeah. So, I really do like being a journalist. You sort of have to be flexible and go with the flow. But again, I'm glad I didn't have to call the police on my own subject. But you did really. And it's funny. I was talking to a lawyer and telling him that story. One of the lawyers that defended Brightweiser, and he's like, that is illegal, and you did accept stolen goods. And I'm like, yeah.
Sometimes you got to cop to the misdemeanor for a good story.
Exactly.
Oh, Michael. Well, I tell you what, look, I am just going to share this up because, like I said, I can't thank you enough for, coming on the show. And I just want everybody to know, look, if you haven't checked out The Art Thief, #1 New York Times bestseller, one of the most remarkable true crime narratives of the 21st century. It's been called the best book of the year by the Washington Post, the New Yorker, Lit Hub, and just heck, not that we all take the Wall Street Journal's word for anything, but Enthralling. No, and it really, really is, Michael, The Art Thief. I tell you, I'm just so thankful for you coming on, and having a cocktail with me and explaining how you got to this story, because that just an incredible work. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gotten a chance to know Mike, and obviously from the show, look, fun guy. Please go give him a follow on X, all his social medias, but the links for his website as well as his incredible works will be, of course, in the description of the show. And Mike, anything, what do you have in the fire now, man? Give us another scoop on Cocktails with Cav, bud.
First of all, Cav, thank you so much for the kind words. And, if anybody's interested in the book, I'd be so honored if you take a look at it. So I'm really picky with my books. What I write about, and so I always get jealous when there's someone just has a successful book, they go on Cocktails with Cav, they already got their next one in the fire. I'm just gonna no need to start lying to you now. I'll just be straight, man. I would love another book topic. I'm writing like National Geographic stories and magazine stories, but anybody out there, Cocktails with Cav fans, especially you criminals out there, if anybody has a great idea for me, seriously, Mike Finkel, MikeFinkel.com, MichaelFinkel.com, it all brings you to the same page. Come check out my website. Feel free to drop me a note in the contact thing. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks, but I respond to everyone, even the I hated your book ones. I'll be like, sorry about that. But, I just feel this, I feel this need to respond. So if anybody has a great idea, I'm open to it. I do not have my next book topic yet. I'm cogitating on a few things, but I'm between projects. Is that the way? Is that that's probably the nice way to say it? Between me and you and all your listeners, man, I'm like pulling what little hair I got left out, looking for my next great topic, because I really love writing short, man. These books are short, 200 pages, in and out. We're not going to take up all your life. Have a good life. Also read a book. I like them short, to the point. I like our conversations pithy, fun, weird, twisty, unpredictable. If all those sort of ring a bell, I'd be honored if you took a look at it. If anybody's got a great idea for me, man, I would just pay you back with my eternal thanks. Shoot, I'm a writer. I wish I could write you a big check, but I got two dogs and one wife, and I'm living in an expensive town, so I don't really.
Exactly.
It's almost as bad as hosting a podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I tell you, you don't have to rush on your next project, Mike. Now that you've been on Cocktails with Cav, your career's made, so just relax.
I mean, I really can just call it a career right now. I'm right on my headstone. Made it to Cocktails on Cav. Here lies Mike.
Yes, and we have our own special award. It's called the Rammy. No, it's but Mike, man, look, again, I know I've said it before, but I so appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule, man, to come on Cocktails with Cav. Tell us about your incredible work. Ladies and gentlemen, by all means, available on Amazon and wherever you get your fine reading materials. Go check out The Art Thief. You can't go wrong. The New York Times bestseller list. Can't be wrong. So, Mike, while you're up there in Utah, man, you have a great night, and I appreciate it. Cheers, my friend.
As they say in France, santé, to your health. Cheers.